The journey didn't start in 2018. The journey started in 2009. 2008, 2009 is when Mr. Blessy got the rights to this wonderful book that was, of course, based on Mr. Najib's real life, written by Benjamin. And he one day called me and said, I'd like to come and meet you. And in 2009, as it is even today, in the Malayalam film industry, when director Blessy calls you, you pick up your phone, right? Because he, much like back then, even today, he is one of the most coveted filmmakers the Malayalam industry has. And for us actors in Malayalam, a Blessy film is a box that all of us want to tick off at least once in our life. So to go back to 2009, I am this young actor who's trying to come to terms with what I am, and how I'm trying to discover myself as an actor. The Blessy calls me and says he's doing this dream film, which is his ultimate vision for his directorial career, and he wants me to play the lead in it. And I'm like, okay. So that's when the journey started. But it took us 10 years. It took us 10 years to finally get this film rolling, because even back in 2009, Mr. Blessy's vision for the film was so gigantic, it was so huge, that at that period in time, it was next to impossible to envisage something like this from the Malayalam industry. Luckily, in the 10 years that ensued, a lot of things changed. The industry dynamics changed. Our revenue streams obviously became bigger and more proliferated. And finally, even though it still remained a huge risk when we started in 2018, finally we were able to do it. And from the very get set go, Blessy was very, very particular that this is not going to be a green screen studio film. He always knew that he wanted to go to the real locations, the terrains, and organically shoot it in a real environment, and that's exactly what he did. But unfortunately, shooting the film was just the beginning of our struggles, because 2018 we started shoot, and as you all know, the pandemic came in between, and we had to suspend our shoot for 1.5 years. But we never gave up. When the world reopened, we went back to Algeria, to the middle of the Sahara Desert, to Timimoun. I don't know the places that we have been, if a film crew's ever even seen. We were that deep in the desert. Jimmy, myself, we shot in Algeria for a month. Then we came back to Jordan. We finished what we could not finish when we started in 2018. Then we finally came back to Kerala and wrapped the film in 2022. So it is an epic 16-year-long journey. I'm 41 years old, and 16 years of my life I've been associated with this film. That's a significant portion of one's life, and a more than significant portion of one's adult life. So for me, on the 28th of March, many things culminate, only one of which is a film. So yeah, thank you for being part of this very special journey. Process of playing the character is actually deeply intertwined with the process of actually adapting it into a feature film narrative. Because the book that Benjamin has written is based on a real life that Mr. Najib has lived, and the film that Blessy has made is based on the book that Benjamin has written. So much like the book is an encapsulated version of the experience that the man has lived through, the film can only always be an encapsulated version of the literature on paper. Because the thing with literature on print is that you have the liberty of micro-detailing. So you can detail every single moment in the character arc when you're writing it down. If we were to make a film that would then capture every detail that is written, this would at the very least be a 10-hour long film. So I think at the very beginning, Blessy told me what I'm trying to do is not recreate the book, but what I'm trying to do is try and make the audience feel what I imagine Najib must have felt. And that was a cornerstone of designing the performance arc as well. I realized at the beginning that the character is so complex and the arc has got so many crests and troughs that it is going to be impossible for me to look at it as one giant character arc. I'll have to break it down in my mind. So Blessy and me decided that we are going to break down the narrative into 3 parts. Of course, there is one part that is not included in these 3, which is who he was before he lands up in the desert. what he was back in Kerala, what he used to do, his family, what did he leave behind before he gets trapped in the desert. So that is one part of his life that will come to you in little pieces, segments of flashbacks in the first half of the film. But that aside, I think Blessy had this wonderful idea that we have to break down the narrative into three phases. So the three phases, phase one is when he lands up in the desert and he realizes that he's stuck. That first phase of actually trying to fight the circumstances and trying to find a way out, and the phase of denial where he's thinking, no, this can't be, I have to get out of this place. And the performance is metered to that emotional graph where he's just not ready to believe that this is happening. So the performance is metered like that. Then the narrative breaks at one point, and then you see him a few months later. Where he's slightly thinner, his hair is grown, his beard is grown, and he's angry. He's angry because that's a phase where he's questioning everything about his predicament. The biggest question in his mind is, why me? And he's angry at himself, he's angry at the circumstances, he's angry at God. And so the performance is metered to that in that one phase. And then the narrative breaks at another point, and then you meet this man 3 years later, where he's completely different. He's no longer the man who you saw. He is more animal than man, because for the last 3 years, the only conversations he's had, are with the animals. So then you meet this broken man who's now come to terms with the fact that this is something he will have to live through. And he will have to go to the other end of this experience. And the other end of it might be death, might be escape, might be salvation. But he has almost come to terms with a spiritual realization that this is something that he is meant to live through. So then the performance is metered to that. So that's the way I broke down the character arc in my mind. And this was a discussion that Blessy and me have had over many days, many months actually. And I should thank him for letting the actor's interpretation take so much space into the style of filming, because he did actually then design the way he filmed the entire film on this classification that I just told you about. I guess this is a good month to be talking about it, because my transformation was largely based on fasting. And there was a consensus between my trainer, my nutritionist, the doctors on set. We had doctors on sets, that there is no healthy way to do it, that there is no healthy way that somebody can lose 31 kilos. So you just try and be as safe as you can. So it was largely based on fasting, and it used to be sometimes up to 72 hours at a stretch. So I just think that this is part of a natural evolution of cinema as an industry, as a business, that we were always headed here. And as exhibition sector and means of bringing your content to the end user, as that has evolved, as streaming services have come in, as satellite television has come in, accessibility to content is now a lot more easier. Somebody sitting in Jharkhand today, if he hears of a good Malayalam film, there's a way to see it. Somebody sitting in Cochin like me, if I hear of a good Assamese film, there's a way to see it. So this phenomenon would then automatically and thankfully mean that slowly we tend to be more open to seeing content in other language. As far as Malayalam cinema is concerned, we are blessed at the moment to be going through a great phase in terms of consistently churning out some really, really good content. I'm proud to be working in an industry that currently has a whole host of writers, directors, actors, producers, really enterprising people who are very adventurous with the kind of cinema they make. But one area of the industry that I still believe is at a very nascent stage is our distribution networks, especially outside the state and outside the country. And the sudden spurt in revenue and numbers for Malayalam cinema theatrically over the last couple of years has been because we have finally realized that, and we are doing something about it. We are trying to now find systems and networks and put them in place to make sure that our cinema travels the world and our cinema is accessible in big screens, in theaters for people to come and watch them. And a great example is this film. The Goat Life is being distributed by Mr. Anil Tarani in the northern circuits. It is being distributed by Red Giant in Tamil Nadu. It is being distributed by Maitri in Andhra and Telangana and by my own company, Prithviraj Productions in Kerala. So this synergy between these 5 distribution houses is happening not just because the film is special, but also because we realize that's the way forward. That we will all now have to work together for each other's films so that eventually, like all of us keep repeating, in a not too distant future, we'll all be just doing Indian cinema.
I'm really blessed to be in this project because I didn't get, when they first came to me, I didn't get how big it was. I was in my own chaos. I was trying to do things. But this man was very persistent. So he came, told the story, and then I gave him a few tunes. Then is a process of understanding what they were doing. Then I finally went to Jordan, looked at what kind of commitment. There's a lot of learning process in this team where I've learned so much. Yeah. And for me, my process is always like I'm the first listener. I'm the first audience. If I'm not happy, I never think that, oh, I don't like it, but they will like it. I never think like that. So even if everybody likes it and I still feel like there's a change it needs to have, I'll stop everything. I anger all the producers, everybody, but I think art is for me that even to the last minute, if something has to be improved, I just want to do that because that's the way I've made myself, set the foundation for my art, for my studio, everything, my whole team. And it's difficult because sometimes you go through success, sometimes you go through failure. But if you believe and you feel like you're honest with your work, it rises up after some years or after a few months. So that's my mantra.
I came into the Indian Hindi film industry, especially in 1995, when nobody was thinking of doing, recording cinema live. And I always thought that, we in Indian cinema always keep actors as mimers, and I wanted to start that, in Indian cinema, and we started doing it very slowly and steadily. And when I came out of my film institute, there was less than 1% of Indian cinema was being shot live with live sound. And today, more than 55-60% of Indian cinema is adopted the technology and giving their audience the first-hand performance of actors. The actors are willing to learn their lines and perform and live through that moment in their life and imbibing and changing every moment of their acting in front of the camera is a life, a new life that they live. So for me, that is very, very important that, the 2 hours or 2.5 hours of time that you dedicate to watch a film is actually you're going through a lifetime of experience, and I want that experience to be truthful, genuine. And I hoped, I always thought when I was in the film school, either I was born in the wrong place or in the wrong time. But now I feel, looking back at my 25 years of my work and experience and what Indian cinema has gone through and what the journey that, both of us were able to make 15 years ago and years before that, I feel I'm in the best time and in the best place. And that's because of only one factor, the hope that things will change, the hope that tomorrow is a better day.
In a moment where Najib's character was really in grave danger, he's almost like an angel that appears out of nowhere. I think what I would like the audience to go home with is the fact that you can decide to do something great for someone without expecting anything in return, just because of the sake of humanity. And if it does that, then I'll be happy.
I've done quite a number of films, so it was important for us to always not lose sight of the fact that the look of the character is not the cause, it is the effect. The look is merely a reflection of what this man had to live through. It is the circumstances that he had to fight against that make him look the way he eventually does. So the discussion was not particularly on what skin tone to achieve or what kind of hair to have. That was never the discussion we used to have when we were deciding on what this man should look like at each stage of his life or each stage of the ordeal. We always used to think of, okay, there's going to be a lot of sun exposure, right? Okay. So his skin has to go darker than you first meet him. So one thing I picked up as part of the performance is that when we went there for the first time in 2019, first desert schedule 2020 beginning, when we went to Vadiram for the first time to shoot what we now refer to as 2019 beginning, when we first went to Vadiram to shoot what we now very impolitely refer to as the fat desert schedule, because that's the schedule where I put on weight for. And we were shooting one night, and I looked around the set and I realized everybody is blinking a lot. It's the wind and the sand. So I realized the director, my co-actors, the technicians, they were all blinking a lot. And then I sort of started watching the Bedouin animal experts we had on set, and these guys were blinking a lot. So I remember talking to this man in whatever kind of language I could manage to communicate to him in, and he told me that they blink a lot so that the eyes don't dry up, because in the desert the eyes dry up very fast. So it's a trait that they almost subconsciously have cultivated, that they blink a lot. So then I realized that, okay, the frequency of blinking has to slowly go up on each stage. Like the second stage, he blinks more frequently. And at the end, it's almost like a nervous twitch that he has, that he keeps blinking. So the appearance, the mannerisms, everything came about through discussions like these. And plus, we had a makeup artist who I truly believe is one of India's finest talents. His name is Ranjit Ambadi. There were days when Mr. Blessy is a very easy filmmaker to work with, because he sometimes does the first shot at 3 a.m. and all that. So yeah, there were days when Ranjit and me had to be up at midnight. And I mean at 12 at midnight. And I had to start my makeup at 12:30 and finish my makeup by around 2:30, 2:45 and be there at the desert to start shoot. And this is not like one off day, many, many days like that. So it's a wonderful team that I had. We have a mind-blowing cinematographer called Sunil KS, who, I mean, the visuals that you've just seen are just tip of the iceberg. The way Sunil has made me look, made Jimmy look, made the other actors look.
First of all, I think when I boarded this train a little later, I mean, the kind of Prithviraj and Blessy and the years they have spent, I am just a drop in that ocean, frankly. They have really, जिसे साधना कहते हैं ना, अब इन्होंने साधना की है और उस साधना का थोड़ा सा प्रसाद मुझे भी मिल गया है. मुझसे जब रहमान साहब ने कहा कि ये उनका ही कॉल था, एंड इसमें नाम भी ऐसे जुड़े थे, पहले रहमान, ऊपर से ब्लेसिंग्स आ रही हैं ब्लेसी से. सो आई थॉट देयर इज सम डिवाइन सॉर्ट ऑफ कहीं एक है डिवाइन इंटरवेंशन फॉर मी टू डू दिस. And there was very little time they gave me, actually, really little time. And the melodies are very complex. So if you hear them, you find, and then you pick up the pen and try and write to that melody. And जैसे हम लोग अक्सर आप लोग सवाल पूछते हैं कि what is written first or composed first, this is purely composed first and written later. So I had to write to the tune. But then I watched the film. And I had not read the book. So, see, book, as आप पृथ्वीराज अभी बता रहे थे, the book has an additional dimension to it. That is the reader's imagination. Your reader's imagination is always supplying images which a director does not have. You have a bigger challenge in front of you. Everything has to be seen on the screen. What was written and left to the imagination is also to be seen there.